Okay, welcome to this session titled Prepare for Jakarta EE11 and with the subtitle Performance and Developer Productivity. My name is Ivar Grimstad and I'm the Jakarta EE Developer Advocate at Eclipse Foundation. And if you want to reach out to me during or after the talk, please feel free to use any of the social media coordinates. Every time somebody says, I'm leaving Twitter, I'm inventing something new, you have to add a new line here. So next year I will probably have 2 pages of all this stuff, but you can use any one. Yes, that's about me. Let's talk about some timeline and look at what's coming in Jakarta EE11. How many are using Jakarta EE today? So, which version? Let me start. Are you on 11 milestone? No, 10. Yeah, 10, good. 9 or 8? Yeah. Okay. Previous versions like Java EE? Some of you. On 7, 8, 6, 5, yeah. So we can go on. So I'll start in 2020. And that's when we did Jakarta EE9. And the main thing with Jakarta EE9 was the namespace change. And we didn't do any other updates in 9 because we wanted that migration to be easy. And that turned out to be a very good idea, especially when you see those of us now on 9 or 10, we've done this migration. We did it like in 2020 we did this, so we know how this goes. But nowadays the Spring community is experiencing this because the Spring Boot 3 was supporting the Jakarta namespace. So they are in all of this migration stuff right now. Then in 2022, we released Jakarta EE10. And the kind of the main thing, that was a lot of updates to a lot of specifications. But the main kind of new thing in 10 was Jakarta EE core profile. And in 2024, we're going to release Jakarta EE11. So it's scheduled to be around June, July this year. So we are already on a kind of a 2-year release cadence here, which is fairly good, I think. So let's see if we can reveal what these question marks will be. So I'll just back one step and talk about what specifications are, because Jakarta EE is all about specifications. Those of you using it knows what it is. Those you don't, it's always good to repeat this kind of thing. So a specification is a textual representation of some piece of technology, usually in an HTML or PDF. It's something human readable in a specification document. It is a API that you can get from Maven Central. That is what we as developers use when we program. And it's a test compatibility kit, or TCK, that we use to test if an implementation fulfills all the requirements in the specification. And when an implementation passes the TCK, it is a compatible implementation. And we need at least one open source compatible implementation to call it a final specification. From there on, any license is good. But most of them are open source. So Jakarta EE10 is the current release out there. And Jakarta EE10 had a lot of updates to specifications. So all the blue ones here were updated in 10. And there were one new specification down in the corner called CDI Lite, which is actually not a specification on its own. We just like to emphasize it there. And that is the CDI Lite specification, or subset of CDI, takes away the dynamic features of the regular CDI, so you can resolve everything at compile time. And hence be able to use GraalVM to compile to native images if you want to. So that's kind of the core profile thing of Jakarta EE10. So if we compare this to Jakarta EE11, you will see that there are still a lot of updates, all the blue ones. A lot of minor updates here and there. And these are numbers that may change. I think they're getting fairly stable now, but there may be changes until the final release. And there's one new one, and that is Jakarta Data. And if you were very observant, you would also see that bean validation has changed name to validation. So we're just going to call it Jakarta Validation now, because it validates more than beans. So let's look at the contents of 11. And as I said, these are the specifications in the platform. that are updated for this release. If we peel away the platform enterprise, we're stuck with or down to the web profile, which is a subset of the platform. This is exactly as it has been since Jakarta EE6 when web profile was introduced. And you can see data is part of web profile. So you get it from a platform implementation and a web profile implementation, which makes sense since persistence is there. And Jakarta core profile is still being updated. It's still there. It came in 10, the first time we introduced a new profile since Java 6 when web profile came. So, and there are no new specifications in core profile. It's just updates to the existing ones. And this is a fairly brand new slide. If I had shown this 2 weeks ago, this would have said 21 all over. But we changed it. And why did we do that? So what we're seeing is that none of the specifications had any wishes or requirements or need to expose any of the Java 21 features after 17 in their APIs. So it doesn't make sense to raise the source level more than 17. So compile low, run high. And so that means we can compile them to Java 17 and have the TCK run and have compatible implementation on 17 or 21. Many vendors will only do 21 and many vendors will only do 17 or maybe both. So we as app developers can use 21 in any of these if we want. So it doesn't matter what the APIs are compiled to, it's just we didn't need to expose any 21 features through the APIs. And that's good, especially when we look at those that are not part of the platform, the implementations of, for example, persistence, like Hibernate. If we had done 21 all over here, we would have forced everybody who's using Hibernate onto 21. And that may have been a little bit too aggressive. So this is what we're going for now. It was a bit of discussions and it got a controversy and not everybody agrees, but that's where we are. You saw the release cadence about 2 years. What we've kind of said internally is that we want to release a Jakarta EE 6 to 9 months after a LTS of Java. And if you remember, 21 was released in September. So June, July is about 9 months after. So within a year after an LTS, we should be able to release a new version of Jakarta EE. And it may be that in the future we will do this, support the previous LTS and the next one. So we're kind of getting there. This is the third real release we're doing, so we're kind of establishing this release cadence so you can rely on when thing comes. We're also introducing something new in this release, and that is milestones. We haven't done that before. So we released a milestone 1 of Jakarta 11 in December, and we're going to release 3 more milestones before we go final. So we're going to do the number 2 in March, number 3 in April, and number 4 in May. These dates may change, but that's kind of where we're planning right now. And what we're going to do in the milestones is that those specifications that are final, we've kind of divided all these specifications up in what we call waves. And that's because there are dependencies between the specifications, like some of them depend on this specification. And so we kind of have figured out that dependency tree. And in the first milestone, we want to have the first couple of waves gone final. So they have to be final with their specification and compatible implementations. Whereas the other ones, those that are in later waves, they can still release just a new version of the API if they've updated it since the last milestone. So we can update. So the M2 of Jakarta EE will have updates to maybe all specification or some of them. So it's kind of a train going, and if you're ready, you just release a milestone. And as I said, release date of Jakarta EE, we're saying H1, which is first half of 2024. We're also saying June, July, which is a little bit past H1, but it's still kind of in the ballpark. So June, July is what I would say, before summer here in Sweden. In Australia, it would be before winter, but since we're here, it's summer. And the kind of theme, it's not official from our marketing, but this is what I want it to be. That's why I'm putting it on all slides. That's performance and developer productivity. That's what I want this release to be about. And that's sort of where we are as well. We're doing some cross-cutting concerns in the platform before we get into what each of the specifications are doing. And that is, we're taking away managed beans. Nobody's using it. It's not that cool anymore. It has served its purpose, but there are better replacements now. So we're replacing it with CDI everywhere. So managed beans is gone. The security manager has been deprecated in JEP 4.11. It's still there in Java 21, and it may be still there in Java 25, who knows. But it is deprecated for removal, so we need to be prepared that it will be gone. And it's not exposed in that many APIs, so we as developers don't really, we don't use it kind of in our code, but those that manage our applications are probably using the security managers, and some of the libraries do. So we're kind of removing it, deprecating it, and getting rid of the hard dependencies on security manager. Most implementations will still support it. So if you're using the security manager, even if you're using the allow all, but we're using security manager, you can still do that. It will still be supported for as long as the vendors choose to. We're also doing something with the optional features, and this is kind of a weird area because not everybody knows about that there are optional features and optional specifications, and what does that actually mean? We're saying this is the platform, but yeah, not all of it, because this is optional. That's kind of weird. So we're saying there are no optional features in the platform anymore. It doesn't exist. So, and there are some optional specifications in Jakarta EE 10, and that is the SOAP specification and XML binding and XML web services. We're saying these aren't optional, but since we're not saying that they are mandatory, they're gone. They'll probably still be implemented, and if you use it, you're fine. But we're not saying it's required if a new specification comes around. But they're still there, the versions, and they're fine. So optional features are gone in the platforms. And that's an important thing. In the component specifications, like for example in Servlet, they can still have optional features. But when they are a part of a platform, unless the platform team says explicitly that these are included, they're not. So that's how we treat optional features going forward. And that's a fairly big step. Let's go into a couple of the specification, or all the blue ones actually. So the security specifications, they are, obviously they are impacted by the security manager removal. So they will remove all this and do some clarifications here in the documents, in the APIs, in the Java docs, in the specification. So it's kind of where it's wishy-washy, it gets clearer. So they're kind of doing a cleanup thing of the security specifications. They're also wondering whether they should merge them together, because there are three ones. There's authorization, authentication, and security API. And we as developers, we are using the security API. The authentication and authorization APIs, that's SPIs, or service provider interfaces, that the vendors are using in the implementation. We're not that often interacting with them. It's exposed through the security API. So maybe it makes sense to just have one spec there. But that's something that will be coming later. So they're updating in the authorization APIs in the security API. The interceptors for authorizations are added, so it's more CDI friendly. And also abstract away the permission store somehow. They're also going to support JSON Web Tokens. Because today you have to add microprofile on top of Jakarta EE in order to support JSON Web Tokens properly. So what we're doing there is create a new specification as a joint effort between Jakarta EE and microprofile. It will be under the microprofile umbrella. It's called microprofile JWT Bridge. And it will be a specification that takes out the integration points, so Jakarta Security can depend on this one, as well as microprofile JSON WT can depend on it, because microprofile JWT depends on Jakarta Security, and we don't want these cycles. So this is kind of to get rid of the cycles in the APIs. So there's a new specification there. So the security, as I said, are three specifications, and you can find them all under the Jakarta EE /specifications / short name of the specification, and then the version number. And these are the version numbers for Jakarta EE 11. Concurrency then. And concurrency is in this release is all about virtual threads. And in Jakarta EE, you sort of, if you're dealing with threads in Jakarta EE, you're doing it in a managed way. So doing it through the managed executor service and etc. And that works fine. And we're all learned never mess with threads outside of these managed threads in the EE environment. So that's a no-go for everybody. So when we introduce virtual threads, and we know virtual threads really doesn't mean any managing, because they're so light and they shouldn't be managed and pooled like we do with platform threads. But we'll still add support in the APIs for virtual threads. And now you may ask, how is this going to work if we're on 17? Because virtual threads came in 21. How are we going to do that? So, well, what we're going to do in the APIs, it turns out in the APIs, they actually don't need to expose anything about the virtual threads. In this example, the managed executor definition, they'll just add a flag virtual equals true. And if it's true, it will try to give you a virtual thread. And the way it will work is that the specification will mandate SE runtime aware support for virtual threads. And with that, how that works is that in the concurrency API, if you're running on 21, for example, and you set the virtual flag to true, you will get a virtual thread. So all fine there. What if we run on 17 and still have the virtual equal true? Well, the specification will say, and this is what they're working on, this can change. But the current hypothesis is that it will be undefined. It can be either you get a platform thread and you just go on. You can also be issued an error and say, this is no-go, you're on 17, you cannot do that with virtual threads. Or it will just issue a warning, so you get a warning in your log, hey, be aware, you're asking for something virtual, you're running on something that doesn't support it, you have to move to 21 if you want virtual threads, but here is a platform thread and use this as you go. So they're working on how are we going to do this, and the key is it will be aware of the runtime it runs and give you the support it can give you. And concurrency 3.1 is under the /concurrency 3.1 URL. CDI 4.0 and CDI Lite, they're adding support for records and seal types, so you can inject those and have them as CDI managed stuff. They're also deprecating the expression language and allowing at priority on producers. For some reason that wasn't possible before, but they're adding it, so that's a kind of convenience thing. They're also doing some integration stuff, and this also has changed lately, because initially it was, let's create a new spec that is called CDI EE and have the integration things there, so specs that are running in the platform are getting these integration features, but if you're running on a bare Java SE platform, you would only use the CDI stuff. But what we're doing now is we don't want to create a new spec because that would be something we had to do for all specifications that are kind of behaving a little bit differently if they're run in an EE environment or an SE environment. So what we're doing is actually take those integration requirements and move them over to the platform. And that's what we're working with right now. I probably should have an under development kind of thing here because it's not final how it's going to be. But the thought is move all the integration requirements over to the platform from the CDI spec, which makes sense. And CDI 4.1 is under CDI 4.1. So expression language, they're getting an update. There's a lot of deprecations going on in that API. They're making the Java Beans API optional, the dependency on it. And also adding support for Java records. So that's kind of the picking up. The last release was compiled to 11, so now we're on 17, then you can use record. So add support for records in the expression language. And yeah, the URL is this. So Jakarta Faces, they originally planned a 5.0 release with a lot of backwards incompatibility stuff. And I think I got this slide right, but they also rely on security managers that are moving that. And also rely on CDI only. I think maybe this one is one that they took away when they decided to go on a 4.1 release rather than a 5.0, so they're not backwards incompatible. But they're also removing some events around and some stuff in their phases, the composite extension, for example. So, and it's a 4.1. So it was originally a 5.0, but they're doing smaller things and kind of bracing themselves for doing the incompatible things coming in next release. Servlet 6.1 is a small update. Also, security manager is here and there, so they're moving that. They're doing some, so you can actually control the status code when you redirect. Before it was kind of the platform did it for you, but now we can actually give the HTTP code, the status code you want to the client in a proper way if you want to have different, like 3.1 or 3.2 or whatever it is. And also some convenience stuff and a lot of clarifications in the specification. So where the language was kind of ambiguous, they're cleaning it up. And servlet is, yeah, you're getting used to this. So persistent 3.2, they have a lot of updates. So they're doing some deprecations. They're removing all the calendar date and the old stuff. So now you're all using the new datetime API. Another thing, and that's too much to put on this slide, is a lot of convenience methods for the criteria language. So when you create queries, rather than having to pull out the information and do some calculations in your code, like finding mathematical stuff with your the rows you're selecting, they have a lot of these convenience methods that will allow the database to do it for you. So you don't have to do it in your application layer. And persistence, the details can be found there, all the list of the updates they're doing. Pages, they're kind of aligning with the updates coming in expression language and servlet. So this is more or less just a cleanup thing and deprecated the stuff. They relied on deprecated stuff from servlet 3.1, and they're kind of taking it. They're on 6.1 servlet now, so they're taking that away. And WebSocket, also it's kind of a maintenance release, doing clarifications and removing the security manager. So that's kind of the theme: get rid of the security manager and clarify things. Validation, as I said, previously known as bean validation, but they're doing more than change the name. They're also adding support of records. So now you can validate a record properly. So previously it was a problem, like where do you hook in the validation, because when is a constructor called and when can you do this validation for Java records, but now they're specifying it, so it will be handled properly. RESTful web services was supposed to do a 4.0, but decided again to do a minor update. And I think I have this right, that update will be very small. They will just like mark things for deprecated. They actually had mentioned it was deprecated, at context and context resolver in the previous version, but they hadn't added the @deprecated flag on the code itself, or the annotation. So now they're doing that and specifying it and what it's being replaced with, doing a proper deprecation for removing it in 4.0 later. Let's look at annotations. So annotations is not a big update, but it's a major one, because the managed beans specification that is removed. The managed beans annotation is the one that activates the managed beans. So that annotation has to be removed. So we're removing something, and it's a major update. So it's a 3.0. But that's the only update they're doing, and they're actually done. Interceptors is to add a standard extra for interceptor bindings. And this is kind of corner case thing. Those who use it are probably very happy for this. I haven't used it myself, so but I see those that are using it are nodding. No, anybody here? No. So they're adding these methods to the invocation context, which is very helpful for those using these interceptors in their code. And then you may have noticed I've skipped one, right? Data, the new specification that is coming. And Jakarta data will, that's a newcomer. It will be in the platform and the web profile. And it's standardizing the repository pattern for data access. And if you're familiar with Spring data, you will be very familiar with Jakarta data because it's exactly the same thing. It may not have the full features as Spring data has, but it's very similar. And we have people from the Spring team is also helping doing this specification for us. And the kind of the key things there is the @repository annotation. You will add on an interface, and it will generate all the database code for you. And you can also add by having this domain-specific language, sort of how you name your parameters and method names. You can create these finders by just calling them find by name, and it will generate a find by name SQL for you. So let's look at that one. So in my code here, I'm using the milestone 1 API, and I'm running this on Java 21, and I have the implementation currently available for Jakarta data is OpenLiberty. So I have the OpenLiberty Maven plugin added here as well. And I'm using MySQL as a database. And that's about it for configuration. So in the OpenLiberty configuration, I've just defined the data source and saying create tables and don't drop them. So it's just the password to you shouldn't put password in these files, but for demos it's okay. And then the application itself is just a REST API. It exposes the /API, and it just extends Jakarta REST application. Then I have a greeting entity, which has a ID, name, and a message, and getters and setters. So it's very simple. And then I have there's REST endpoints that are exposing the /greetings, and has a find all, which is now empty because I'll implement it. And also has a add greeting method. So I can add a greeting and I can find all. And if I want to run this one, I can run this with Maven Liberty the dev. And if I use the dev mode, it will just pick up the changes as I go, so I don't have to restart the thing. You're familiar with it if you're using Quarkus or something. And you see, OpenLiberty is fast, like 88 milliseconds. You wouldn't be able to start Hello World in Spring in under 3 seconds. So this is good. So if we look at the just see verify that we don't have anything in the database. HTTP get. It's not this one. It's 90. You know what? Since it's so fast and I have the history in my author console, I'll just do the Liberty dev there, and then I'll query it here. 9080, and I'm doing the list greetings. So there are no greetings in the database because I haven't added anyone in, and it's a hard-coded list of 0. So let's add some data access. And the way I do that is to add a new Java class. It's going to be an interface, and I'll call it greeting repository. So I added the greeting repository, and the one thing I'm going to add here is the @repository annotation, and you can see that's the Jakarta data repository. And I'm going to extend the CRUD repository that has a greeting and a long as a primary key. So the only thing I do is add this interface. And if I now go into my method and rather than just return the empty list, let's inject the gridding repository. So I inject the repository here, and rather than returning an empty list, I'll return the gridding repository find all. And here you can see I have find, insert, save, find by ID, find by, and etc. So I'll just do the find all and to list because it returns a string. So now I return all greetings. So that's how easy it is. I just added this interface. That's all I have to do. The next thing I'm going to do is to add a way of adding messages or greetings to my database. So here I can do say greetings. The saved one is going to be greeting repository dot save and the greeting that I have as a parameter. So I'll just save this one and I'll just write a response here. Greetings saved with ID, and then say greeting dot get ID. So now I have a way of adding things in my database. So let's go and do that. So I'll do a let me see echo. So I'm adding a message. It's saying hello from Duke and name Duke. That's my JSON. And I'm piping this to an HTTP post on the API greetings. And you see, it works fine. I get an HTTP 200, and it says greeting saved with ID 0. ID 0, okay, that was good, not good, but okay. Sorry? Okay, so I used the wrong one, but it's still in the database. So if I look at it, I now have a message from Duke. So, but we can fix the code. What did I say? It's the saved one. Yeah. So that's always good when you do the demos. You should have audience. If you're doing a demo at home, you know, you have to have the chatbot or something that can kind of check that you're doing it right. That's what ChatGPT is for. So now I've added a greeting. So that was easy. Let's add one more. And now I'm saying it's not a message from Duke, it's from Miss Duke, because Duke has a girlfriend. So I'll just say this is from Miss Duke. So now I added 2 greetings in my database. What if I now want to show only Duke greeting, and I only have the find all method? Well, what I have to do then is in my greeting repository, I can add a method. So I'd add a method that is returning an optional greeting. And I'll call it find by name ignore case. So this is how you kind of write the queries. You just tell what you want it to do, and I pass in a string name, and that's all I have to do. So now I've given it a query method, and I can in my code, and here I'll cheat a little. I'll do add the name to the URL, and then I'll do the I've misspelled here, so let's just fix that. So I'll take the parameter from the path, and then call this find by name ignore case, and just say not found if I don't find it. So if we now do the a query, I'll just clear here. If we do the query here, but now we say Duke, it will return hello from Duke. So you don't have to write any criteria language or anything. If I now write Dukes, it will say Duke not found, right? Because it's not there. So it actually finds the Duke. So that's cool for developers, right? Are you excited about data? Yes? Yeah? So that's a good thing. And there's an opportunity here. So because you saw I demoed OpenLiberty, but OpenLiberty is programmed in a way that it's very kind of tied into OpenLiberty. So how are we going to get that out to, for example, Glassfish? And there are no open source projects at Eclipse Foundation for implementing data yet, or at Apache. So if you want to start a project and do a Jakarta data implementation, it's fairly thin specification. It's fairly easy. And you can look at OpenLibrary to see how to do it and create an Apache or Eclipse Foundation project. And you could be the Jakarta data hero for eternity. And that's a way of securing your resume, you know. And there will be the Hibernate team at Red Hat has actually said that they will help Eclipse Link implement it at Eclipse Foundation. So there are efforts going on there, but it's still an opportunity. We want to have one at Apache as well, because we have Apache implementation like Tommy. They need an implementation with an Apache license. And at Eclipse Foundation, it's usually EPL2. So if you're an Apache register, have a user there, and want to start a project and know something about persistence, this is an opportunity. We're also introducing a new concept called prospective specifications. And a prospective specification in Jakarta 11 will be Jakarta MVC. And Jakarta MVC standardizes the action-based model view controller pattern. So it's MVC, but Jakarta Faces is also MVC, but Faces is component-based, whereas Jakarta MVC is action-based. And that means that you as a developer implement the controller. And there are some annotations like add controller that you will add on a RESTful resource. So it builds on Jakarta REST. So you just add controller, and then you can actually return a void, because this wouldn't work in Jakarta REST, but with the add controller annotation, it will render the page it returns. Or if you have at view, you can have a void, and it will render that hello JSP page. And there are other view engines and JSPs if you don't like JSPs. But as you see, the JavaScript community nowadays are sort of reinventing JSPs. So and PHP and everything, you know, everything we did 20 years ago, the JavaScript folks are now doing. So this is the time for MVC and the time to look at it. And that's why we say it's a prospective specification. It's not guaranteed to be implemented, but we recommend it to be there. And Eclipse Glassfish has Jakarta MVC implementation internally. So if you want to try out Glassfish. We're hoping for Jakarta NoSQL to be a prospective specification as well. But they haven't released a final release yet, and that is a requirement for a prospective specification. So they are at a beta 3 or something. So if they do a 1.0 before summer, we can add it as a prospective specification, because this is fairly cool as well. And it plays along with Jakarta data. So if you, the Eclipse JNoSQL, not to be confused with Jakarta NoSQL, because Jakarta NoSQL is the specification. The implementation, or one of the implementations, is Eclipse JNoSQL. That implements data and NoSQL, so you can use Jakarta data with NoSQL databases. And that's fairly powerful. And this is standardized integration with NoSQL the same way as Jakarta Persistence standardizes SQL. So as far as you can go and be similar on graph and document and whatnot databases, this will take you there. We also have a standalone specification called Jakarta RPC. So if you're an expert on gRPC, this is a place to go if you want to build your resume again. This is an opportunity. This is where you can be the RPC guy or gRPC guy at Eclipse Foundation, at Jakarta EE, because there is an initial contribution there, so they are some way along, but there isn't much progress. So they need somebody going in there and kicking some cans around and starting that project going. So to sum up, Jakarta EE 9 brought us the namespace change. And the namespace change, most of you probably, is there anybody struggling with the namespace right now? Or during the migration? Yes, one. We feel for you, but there is help. So if you have like transitive dependencies that you don't have the source code available for, or libraries that haven't moved to the namespace for you, there is something called transformation. So you can use these tools, so the Eclipse Transformer or the Apache Tomcat migration tool, to do the bytecode transformation for you. So you don't have to like unpack your libraries and change the namespaces and put them back in and release them. You can just run the transformer on all your dependencies and it will have changed, created a new jar for each of those dependencies with the namespace changed. So it's a very cool tool. Open Rewrite is another tool that would help you with your code base. You can just add it as a Maven plugin and migrate your entire thing. Then we had Jakarta EE 10 that added a lot of updates to the specification, but the big thing was the core profile. And as we've seen now, Jakarta 11 comes with a lot of updates. It's a lot of cleanup things still, but some of the specifications are adding new things like support for records in validation, like virtual threads in concurrency, like the new data specification. So there are some new exciting things coming in 11, and that's just 6 months away. And if we look at this timeline, we had the namespace in Jakarta 9 in 2020, we had the core profile in 2022 in 10, and in 11, we will have Java 21 support, even though we say we compiled to 17, which is fine, because we will be able to support 21 since we run the TCKs on 21 as well. So you will have virtual threads if you need it. Jakarta data is a new specification. Lots of removals and deprecations and clarifications. We're on the path of getting CDI centric. So we know. Me personally, I think EJBs is a fantastic technology, but we know the kind of the legacy the name has. So in order to please people that have an issue with EJB, we're going CDI centric. So EJBs may be on the kind of the not being updated path, and maybe be like managed beans removed entirely in the future. We don't know yet, but we're working on getting everything CDI centric. So I hope that those kind of items and what we talked about today will build up Jakarta EE 11 as a release for performance and developer productivity. I especially think that Jakarta data is something that will help getting developers more productive very quickly. And if you run on 21, you will get better performance just by running on 21. And if you need to use virtual threads or you have a use case for that in the application, you will have supported through the concurrency APIs in a controlled way. And most of the implementation that run on 21 will have optimizations on virtual threads there anyway. So just by being there, it will go faster. But as I said, we will also be able to support 17. So if you are stuck on 17 or have to be there, you will be fine. But you can use 21. So if you want to learn more about Jakarta EE, you can go to jakarta.ee. You will find in the corner there is a start button. I think they're going to add a learn button as well, where we will have tutorials and getting started articles and videos and that kind of things. But the start button will take you to start jakarta.ee, which is very similar to the Spring Initializer, where you can just add some properties and generate your project and get started right away and choose implementations, and you will get the right configuration without thinking about it yourself. So it's a useful thing. All the specifications are under Jakarta EE/specifications. There you will find a list of them. You can click and see the version numbers and the state, how far they come. I write my weekly #Jakarta EE and also other blogs here and there. And the demo code for this talk is on my GitHub repository. It's called Duke's Data. I think you can just Google Duke's Data and you will find it. I don't know, many others would call it Duke's Data, but that's my name. If you want to learn more about Jakarta EE, this is about Jakarta EE 10, I have a LinkedIn course that is available for you. You can go there. If you have a company-paid LinkedIn account, if somebody is, or a library account or whatever that gives you free LinkedIn, go ahead, take that course, and you will get a certification of completion on your LinkedIn profile. If you're paying for your LinkedIn courses yourself or don't have anybody paying for you, that's where my social media page in the beginning comes in handy. So ping me on LinkedIn and say you're interested in the course, and I'll give you a free link. And with that, I thank you very much for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed Jfokus, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. I have 2 pairs of socks and a beanie, so the three first questions will get swag. For the rest, there are stickers in front here. Thank you very much. Any questions? What will be in 12? We are working in a document that is called After 11. So in my blog, if you remember that URL, in last week's hashtag, or the week before, I linked in that document where they've started thinking about it. So there is a looking ahead document. Me personally, I think we should do something within AI, so Jakarta AI. How we're going to frame that, I don't know, but we should be there. Another personal favorite of mine, which is not in that document, but I'm going to add it, is we need support for faster startups. Even though you see Open Liberty starts in 88 milliseconds, we could start in a thousands of that again. If we add support for crack or CRU, like Open Liberty has instant on J9. If you run on OpenJDK, there's a project called Crack, which is gives you faster startup times. So if we can standardize and abstract away an API like the crack.io API, we will be able to give developers to be able to feed into that startup process, and you'll get your choice. Beanie, yes? So we have socks for the next. Any more questions? Nobody wants socks? Okay. Thank you very much for listening, and see you again later.